Hey, I'm Erinn Cottman, founder of Erinn Cottman Teacher Development, and I'm passionate about transforming education. With over a decade of experience in education and instructional leadership, I've dedicated my career to empowering educators to reach their full potential. At ECTD, we specialize in providing the support and training that schools and districts nationwide need to create a culture of coaching that enables educators to be effective and at the top of their game. Our mission is simple: to strengthen school leaders and educators to improve classroom performance. Join me on this daily journey of transformation. Together, we can spark the change that educators and students truly deserve. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Next Level Coaching. My name is Erinn Cottman, and this is episode 1 of this podcast. I am super excited about it. I think that coaches, instructional coaches and leaders deserve a space to come, to ask questions, to learn. Community is everything for school leaders. And so this podcast is that. It's a space for us to hone our skills as coaches, learn from one another, and to build community. So this is literally episode 1 of the podcast. I'm super excited. So make sure that you subscribe and leave a review if you find the podcast to be helpful. So a little bit about me. My name is Erinn Cottman again. I have spent the last 15 years in education. I'm in Atlanta. I own Erinn Cottman Teacher Development. We help schools and coaches develop a culture of instructional coaching in their building. And so this first episode is literally about what is a culture of coaching, because in order for us to be able to build over this season of this podcast, we've got to have the same foundation. So a culture of coaching. One, think of anyone you know who's just really good at something. Serena Williams, and maybe it's Michael Jordan. They have a coach, right? Everyone has a coach. I would even probably guess that like Mark Zuckerberg has a coach or mentor of some kind, right? And for some reason in education, we don't always see the value of coaching, and that's confusing to me, right? So if you think about a coach, you think that a coach is something that someone who is continuous in their development of you. They're constantly providing you with feedback, both affirming and adjusting. They are a listener, right? But they are 1,000% poured into your development and growth. And when we think about educators and we think about education and the constant changing landscape of education, a coach helps a teacher to navigate that successfully. And so that's why, for me, the value of a coach is so, so important. I started teaching at a high-performing charter school years ago. I was an alternative certification person, so I didn't have any education background. I did Teach for America. And the only reason that I was successful, the only reason that I found success and stayed in the classroom was because I had amazing coaches along the way. So very early on in my career, I was able to see like what a coach does, a good coach does. So when we think about a culture of coaching, the idea here is that every single person in your building has a coach. When I say every single person, I mean every single person has a coach or is getting some sort of development and feedback in the form of coaching. So that means if I am the lunch lady, who in my belief is like, side note, if you guys are in a school, you need to be best friends with the janitor, the maintenance man, and the school lunch lady. Those are like the 3 most important people to be down with. But so even the lunch lady should have a coach, meaning she should be getting feedback on how well her services are, right? How are children enjoying the food and the staff enjoying the food? Is it efficient, right? Because we know how lunchtime is in a school. Is it efficient, right? Like, are we wasting food? Like, what's happening in the cafeteria that's making this move efficiently and quickly? But that's a culture of coaching. A culture of coaching means every single person, the superintendent, the principal, the 5th grade English teacher, the math teacher, every single person, your veterans, your new teachers, all get coaching and development. When you build a culture of coaching, that means that everyone understands that we are in continuous improvement, not just the students. Everyone understands we are in continuous improvement, not just the students. And so that is like the culture of coaching. We all have a culture of something in our schools. It's just a matter of what culture have you created, right? So you may have a positive school culture, but that's a culture. That's like the thing that permeates. It is in how you schedule. It is in how you spend your meeting time. It is in the language that you use about students and stakeholders, right? That's a culture. You also can have a very negative culture in your building, right? So you have a culture of something. It's just a matter of what is it that you've created a culture. And so what I work with schools to do is create a culture of coaching and continuous development. So I want to dive deeper today into like, what does that start to look like to do that? And so the first thing you want to make sure you do is have an educator needs analysis, meaning as a leader, as a coach, do I know what the people in my building need each and every day? Do I know their strengths? Do I know their weaknesses? Do I know what they're working on? Do I know what students need? Do I know what teachers need in order to get to students? Do I know what every single person aspires to be and do, right? If I want to be a lifelong classroom teacher, fantastic. What does it look like for me as a coach to identify what you need to do that? So that looks like making sure that I have one-on-one meetings with them at the top of my school year, making sure I understand their desires, as well as being able to explain to them, hey, here's the desires that I think would impact your classroom or the role that you want to have. It's making sure that you have some sort of grounding tool that gives you that educator needs analysis, right? So is it a rubric? If you work at Peabody Elementary, making up stuff, right? Peabody Elementary, what is a Peabody Elementary teacher? What makes that school teaching staff unique? And so that's the piece that's super important at the top of the school year, is doing that educator needs analysis. What does everyone in your building need? What are they good at, right? And how am I going to help them get there by the end of the year? It's also insanely important to make sure that as coaches, I am thinking about the professional development that is going to be necessary for my staff that year, right? I should have a professional development plan, right? So I've done my educator needs analysis. Now I have a professional development plan. And here's the key, guys, it has to be differentiated. The same way a kid does not want to sit through your same lesson and they already know it, it's the same exact thing for the educators and professionals in your building, right? So what does each teacher's individual development look like that year? So you've done your educator needs analysis. Now you're deciding, what does every educator need and what's the path to get there? What PDs are we going to do whole staff? What PDs are by department? What PDs are one-on-one? Am I sending this subset of teachers to a conference, right, that pours into them? What is the actual professional development plan that's going to assist them throughout the year? You guys are going to see me look at my phone, and I do that for multiple reasons, but one of the main reasons is because as coaches, we often are expected to be the experts in everything, and that's just not realistic. And we go into meetings and facilitation and we try and memorize everything versus making sure that we're not leaving out any of the important key points. And that translates to teachers. I always tell teachers, especially with scripted curriculum being so popular, why are you trying to memorize it? Print out the lesson and use the lesson, right? So that way you make sure you're giving a thorough teaching. So I always, as a leader, model, I'm not memorizing anything. I'm making sure that I've internalized what I'm teaching, but I'm also going to make sure I'm being thorough in my teaching by looking at my notes. So I want to make sure I don't miss a thing for you guys. All right, so regular coaching sessions and modeling are a part of a culture of coaching. Regular coaching sessions. Guys, observation is not coaching. Just because I go in a classroom and I sit there for 20 minutes and I take notes and I give you feedback, that's not coaching. Imagine if Serena Williams' coach just watched her play tennis and then sent an email with make sure your backhand is stronger. That's not coaching, right? He's going to get out there, or he or she's going to get out there and model, right, what they want to see. So that's part of the flat coaches get, is that they just pop into classrooms, leave a glow and a grow and bounce. And that's not going to be good enough, right? If we're thinking about a culture of coaching. One of the ways that I know whether or not a school has a culture of coaching is when I come and observe. If a teacher looks scared to see me, I know that you don't have a culture of coaching, because that either means you're not observing enough or observations are used as a weapon. And that's far from a culture of coaching. So the observations need to happen, but then you have to follow up with a meeting, right? So you're giving that feedback and you're tying that feedback to some sort of action step that the teacher is going to now implement. And that looks like me sitting down with the teacher to debrief what I saw. And I'm sitting alongside the teacher, not across from the teacher. I'm sitting alongside them, because as a coach, I'm really aware of power dynamics and body placement, right? So I'm sitting next to the teacher to show a sign of collaboration. And in that moment, I'm debriefing with them by asking a lot of questions and just listening to what the teacher's reflection is on their own practice. I'm helping them see, hey, here's the strategy or the action step that I'm going to give you to work on this week. Here's why, and then here's how it looks like to work on that. So either we're actually practicing it, maybe we're getting an upcoming lesson and we're scripting together where that action step takes place. I think about, I had a coach when I taught who would co-teach alongside me my first period class sometimes. I was a brand new teacher teaching 5th grade, and certain things, if you're telling me, I get it, but I learn faster if you just show me. I'm gonna get it 10 times faster if you show me. And so she would often come to my first period class and show me the instructional strategy, right? And then I would be able to implement it for the next 2-3 classes that I had. That's coaching. If she would have just sent me an email with, hey, Erinn, make sure that you try think, pair, share in this next class. Okay, what does that mean, right? What does that look like? What do I need to consider, right? And as a teacher who's already feeling overwhelmed at times, I need to feel a little bit of success from that coaching in order for me to be bought into the coaching. And you're gonna get that faster as a coach if you just get in there and show it. So that's that feedback and modeling piece. When we say a culture of coaching has meetings and feedback attached to it, that's what we're talking about. Do not be the coach that just shows up, observes, and leaves a sticky note. That's not coaching. That's just an observation. A culture of coaching has 2 more pieces that we're going to talk about. So data analysis is deep in a culture of coaching. How do you know that your coaching is working? You don't know if you're not looking at data and you're not analyzing the data. A culture of coaching includes, we know as a school what data we value. We know what data we look at. We know what data we're collecting. We know how we collect that data. We have a cadence for how often we look at that data. And by golly, we respond to the data. You can think of so many schools and places that just have so much data and they look at it and then it's like, okay, well, let's carry on with the day. Like they don't do anything in response to the data. So if you've got a culture of coaching, data is not scary. We'll have an episode in the coming weeks about just data, but data is scary for people. And so it's impossible to truly have a culture of coaching if you're not norming that data is just information. It's powerful. It's something we can respond to. But if we're scared of it and we avoid it and we don't have systems that support it, we have a huge misstep. So data, literally, I used the example earlier of the lunch lady. Like every single person that in that school should be gathering some sort of data to respond to better do their job. And the last piece is engaged and trained leadership. You know, for coaches, I think sometimes they end up on an island because they're not necessarily someone's manager, and depending on the structure of your school, they may not be a member of the admin team. So there can be a disconnect oftentimes between the coaches or those who are coaching and the school leadership team. And so it's really important that the school leadership team is able to support the work of the coaches, right? And so that means as a school leader, I know what the coaches are working on. I know our structure and framework to our coaching. I know our approach and beliefs around coaching, and I support and echo that of the coaches. I verbally echo that to staff. In my actions, I do that. So an example would be if I am an engaged leader in the culture of coaching, I'm not going to tell coaches, you've got 30 minutes for a collaborative planning meeting. That's not enough. You're setting me up for failure as a coach, right? Because now what are teachers going to say? It's too rushed. It's not enough time. I don't see the value in it. An engaged leader knows and understands the value of coaching, and they set up their time and schedule to support that. They co-observe with their coaches. And then lastly, an engaged leader is trained, meaning as a principal, I should be able to jump in and coach. As an assistant principal, I should be able to jump in and coach. If we're using like Get Better Faster or whatever framework or approaches to coaching, every single leader in that building should know how to do that and implement it effectively. Because as a leader, I should be able to give feedback to my coaches on how well they're coaching. So engaged leaders cannot look at coaching as like a separate deal. It has to be a part of how they approach their leadership. They have to see the value in it, and they have to be trained in it. It's also super important that a engaged and trained leader, right, is implementing coaching for themselves. As a principal, I should have a coach. I should have a veteran principal or a superintendent or someone who's able to pour into me as a coach. As a leader. That helps me to say, hey staff, I as a principal also have a coach. I do not know it all, and I also value improvement and continuous feedback. So engage and train leadership is key. Data analysis and the systems in which we look at and respond to data. We have to know our frameworks and our approach to coaching. We have to make sure that we are putting our time and energy in the systems in place that actually say, yes, we value coaching. We have to make sure that coaches and leaders are on the same page and echoing the same sentiment. And we have to make sure that every single person in our building is getting regular feedback, continuous feedback, and feedback that will help them to improve. I hope that this first episode was helpful to you all. I'm really excited for this season. It's going to be a good one. We're going to have fun. We're going to talk about the things that are necessary. We'll have some great guests on. So I'm excited. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Make sure that you subscribe and leave a comment and share with another instructional leader in your community. Thank you.